Good afternoon, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Disidores here to read the first and second grade read aloud of Gooney Bird Greene. And today it is Wednesday, April 22nd. So we left off, we've read 3 chapters so far. So Gooney Bird's a new girl in school, and all the kids love her. They love the way she dresses, they love the way she does her hair. She's very kind and polite, but she's also very outgoing. She's outspoken, she's not shy, and she has lots of great stories to tell. And she's telling her second grade class all these different stories because they're learning about what what a good story has in it. And it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's exciting and makes the readers want to read more and listen to more. So she's been telling the class lots of stories. And at first we thought that the stories were made up, but it seems like her stories really are true. They turn out to be true. So we're now into chapter 4. And this is again another long chapter. So I'll read part of it today and then the rest tomorrow. On Monday, Gooney Bird stood in front of the class when Mrs. Pigeon told her that it was story time. The children barely noticed Gooney Bird's clothes, even though she was wearing a ruffled shirt, dark blue knee socks, and high-top basketball sneakers. The second graders, and Mrs. Pigeon too, were all much more interested in Gooney Bird's earrings. The earrings dangled and glittered and were very large. "They're beautiful," Rico said in an awed voice. "My grandma's house has doorknobs that look like that," Tricia announced. "And she has a sparkling chandelier in the dining room. My grandma is very rich." "Do you have holes in your ears?" Malcolm asked. "My mom does. My mom went and had holes stabbed right into her ears with a needle." "I did too," Jeannie called out. "I have pierced ears." "So do I," Mrs. Pigeon told the class. She turned her head from side to side so that they could all see her small gold earrings. "No," Gooney Bird said. "My earrings screw onto my ears. They have little screws that you turn. They're clip-on earrings." Barry Tuckerman thrust his arm into the air and waved it wildly. Around him, other children had their hands raised too. "My mom has pierced ears," Barry said loudly. "Ben," Mrs. Pigeon said next. Ben said, "My mom has pierced ears, and so does my grandma." So here's an illustration of Gooney Bird. And there she is wearing those really big earrings. She's been talking about those earrings in other chapters, that she has these diamond earrings. Here they are. All right. "All right, class," Mrs. Pigeon said. "Does anyone else have something to say which is not about pierced ears? Because it is time for Gooney Bird to begin today's story." All of the hands disappeared except one. Chelsea kept her hand high in the air. Mrs. Pigeon sighed. "Chelsea, my mom has a pierced nose," Chelsea told the class. "Oh, no," Pico wailed. "I'm going to be sick." "Shh," the other children said. When the class was quiet, Gooney Bird began her Monday story. The Princess, the Palace, and the Diamond Earrings. Okay, so there she is. She's in front of the class ready to tell her story. And if you remember, this is how what my book looks like. That's how her stories are written, and that's why I talk in her Gooney Bird voice. That's how I make Gooney Bird sound. Once upon a time, before she moved to Watertown, when she still lived in China, Gooney Bird Greene was on her front porch playing Monopoly against herself. Gooney Bird number 1, the thimble, owns all 4 railroads and St. Charles plates, which she liked because it was magenta. Gooney Bird number 2, the car, was having a harder time of it. She owned Atlantic Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue, and she liked the combination of yellow and green. She also owned both Waterworks and the electric company, but unfortunately, she was in jail. So she's playing Monopoly. I don't know if you've ever played that game before. Suddenly, just as Gooney Bird number 2 tried unsuccessfully for the second time to throw doubles and get out of jail, she heard someone calling loudly, "Napoleon is missing!" It was the prince who lived next door. Hands flew up in the air, and Gooney Bird looked impatiently at her classmates. So there they all are. They're listening to her story. And there's a boy with his hand raised. I think it's Barry because he always stands up with his hand raised. And there's, I think, Felicia Ann, who's always very shy and looking down at the floor. Are these really, really important questions? She asked. Because I've just barely started the story. One by one, most of the hands went down. Mrs. Pigeon had picked up the encyclopedia. "Gooney Bird," Mrs. Pigeon said, "I have a feeling you know this already, but Napoleon Bonaparte," she turned to the class. "He was the Emperor of France," she explained. "Oh, I love emperors," Pico said. Mrs. Pigeon, still looking at the encyclopedia, went on. "Napoleon was born in 1769. That's more than 200 years ago." "Mrs. Pigeon! Mrs. Pigeon!" Barry Tuckerman was half out of his seat, waving his hand. "Yes, Barry?" "My grandmother once saw an emperor butterfly, but now it's extinct. It was purple," Barry Tuckerman said. Gooney Bird sighed. "Do you want to hear this story or not?" she asked. "I can't wear these earrings all day. They're very heavy." "Yes, we do," Miss Pigeon said. "Please go on." "Ready?" Gooney Bird asked the class. Everyone was ready, so Gooney Bird continued her story. "Gooney Bird," the prince called, sounding very distressed. "Napoleon has disappeared. Can you help us find him?" Gooney Bird carefully tucked all of the Monopoly money under the edge of the board so that it wouldn't blow away. There was a slight breeze. She had had problems with money blowing away in the past. She kept her own money collection, which she carried with her at all times, safely contained in a Ziploc bag. Then Gooney Bird set out to look for clues that might reveal the whereabouts of Napoleon. Napoleon was not the Emperor of France. He was a large black poodle. Every hand in the second grade class shot up. Even Felicia Ann's. "Finally." "I knew that would happen," Gooney Bird said. "I just knew it. Time for an intermission. Mrs. Pigeon, do you want to deal with this?" Mrs. Pigeon nodded. She thought for a moment, then she announced, "Every child who has a poodle, put your hand down." 4 hands went down. "Now," Mrs. Pigeon said, "every child whose grandmother has a poodle." Hands down. 7 more hands were lowered. "Every child who knows a poodle who does interesting tricks, or who gets into trouble, or who ran away once." Hands down. Other hands went down, and now there were just 3 hands still in the air. "Beanie, what kind of dog do you have?" Mrs. Pigeon asked. "Golden Retriever." "That's lovely." "Ben?" "A Corgi." "Good." And finally, "Tricia?" "I don't have a dog," Tricia said sadly. "I'm allergic to dogs. And my mother said I can never, ever have one. Or even a cat. Not ever. Because I might have a terrible asthma attack. And then I would have to go to the hospital, maybe in an ambulance, and..." "We understand, Tricia. And now let's go back to the story, because we still don't know what happened to Napoleon or about the palace," said Kiko, "and the earrings." Gooney Bird shook her head a little so that the earrings moved and sparkled in a glamorous way. "Listen for the word suddenly," Gooney Bird advised. "I put one in the story already, but I like to sprinkle in several. Some other suddenlies will be coming soon." Gooney Bird then continued her story. Gooney Bird examined the prince's backyard. She saw a place where the ground was disturbed by the corner of the fence. "Look," she said. see this bit of dog hair caught in the fence? That looks like Napoleon's. See, he said next, pointing to some newly dug earth. Here is where Napoleon wiggled under the fence. What a good detective you are, the prince said to Gooney Bird. Gooney Bird let herself out of the yard and through the gate. She sniffed. She listened. Suddenly, there's a suddenly, called Malcolm. Good listening, Gooney Bird said. Then she continued. Suddenly, because of the clues that she smelled and heard, Gooney Bird moved forward. There, at the end of the alley, was an overturned garbage can, and there, with his head inside the can, was Napoleon, eating garbage. He had coffee grounds all over his face, and an orange peel was stuck on one of his ears. You naughty thing, Napoleon, Gooney Bird said, and he took hold of his collar. Napoleon burped. Oh, no, Pico cried. Not garbage, not burping. Shh, the other children said. Many hands were waving in the air. Mrs. Pigeon stood up. No story about dogs eating garbage, she said firmly. Not a single one. All of the hands went down. Please, please, please tell about the palace and the prince and the earrings, Chelsea begged. I'm about to, Gooney Bird said. So we are going to stop there in the middle of Gooney Bird's story. We are going to find more out about a palace and the earrings. But so far her story is pretty interesting. And I think she's very good at it and at storytelling. And I think that's why her teacher, Mrs. Pigeon, is letting her tell these stories each day. Okay, so I am going to stop there. I hope you're enjoying Gooney Bird, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye. Stay safe. Miss you all.